Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 41 of the In the 11 podcast, hosted by myself, Brendan Griffiths. I am so happy to be back on the microphone consistently again, posting episodes, producing episodes, and providing you guys with some great stories and some great interviews here. Today is no different. We have Jacob Bushue on the podcast. He has a vast experience in the football world, from playing college soccer at one of the powerhouse NCAA Division I universities in the United States at Indiana, to making his way into the USL, finding himself in Finland. There's stories of contracts and trials and promotions and captaining teams, and it's one that you really are not going to want to miss. So I'm excited to show you guys the rest of this episode quickly before I turn you over to that. Firstly, if you haven't gotten your Mystery Sport jersey yet, I would tell you to head over to mysterysport.com, where you can use the code INDY11 at checkout. Mystery Sport has great jerseys, bundle boxes, and now I just recently saw they're offering scarves. So if you want to head over to Mystery Sport, again, use code INDY11 to get your latest gear. Secondly, I would greatly appreciate if you could click that link down below for the podcast's new Patreon page to become a patron of the podcast. It really is such a big thing that could help the podcast grow, help us continue to produce the episodes that we do, hopefully continue to have lots of great, cool guests on, and just overall provide greater content to you as the listener and this community that we're building here over at In the 11. Becoming a patron is something that you guys can do to really help me and help this podcast grow a little bit. So if you appreciate the content, if you appreciate the podcast, and you can afford to do something like that, I would greatly, greatly appreciate if you could do that. Like I said, it's something that helps the podcast grow a little bit and allows me to do even more in terms of giving back to this community. So if you can, would love if you could do that. Head over to Patreon and become a patron of the In the 11 podcast. Now, without further ado, let me shoot you on over to my chat with Jacob. All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the In the 11 podcast. Super excited today to have Jacob Bushue in the 11 with us. Jacob, thanks so much for joining. A player who played for the Indiana Hoosiers, played some college soccer over here in the States, and now finds his way not only playing professionally in Finland, but also the captain of his club. Did you ever expect, growing up, I'm sure you wanted to be a pro, and especially as you went into college and then had your experiences overseas, did you ever imagine captaining a club in a foreign country?
I guess it was never something I envisioned or planned on necessarily, but I've been in leadership roles, since I was even youth stuff, like club and all of those things, and all the way through high school and college. So I guess I would never put it out of the picture. One of the things whenever I go into a team, I like the leadership positions, and I like the things that come with being a captain, not just the authority that people would see with it.
Yep.
That's not the things that interest me the most about it, but being respected by your peers and all of those. So
yeah, absolutely. I think the reason I ask is I'm sure it's different in a country like Finland, as where a lot of people speak English, but coming in and not knowing the language and then being able to establish yourself as not only a key figure in the team, but also someone that can be a leader and can communicate with other teams, communicate with referees, things of that nature. Did you ever have any struggles with that in the early stages?
No, not really, because like you said, everyone speaks English, so it's a completely different ball game than in America, where for the most part people only speak English. So if someone were to come over to an American team and they didn't speak English, they essentially don't have a shot at being captain. There'd be no way. But so I was actually not only at Haka, but the team I was at before at AIF, I was also the captain there, which was also crazy. So now it's been two teams now in Finland that I have been. In both places, there wasn't an issue because, the players speak English, the referees all speak English. So maybe there's some times where there can be a little bit of an issue with referees whenever I'm yelling at them in English.
Yeah.
Because then they get, it's a second language. So, but for the most part, I mean, it's been pretty smooth on that.
Gotcha. Well, let's paint the picture, I guess, a little bit for the listeners. As I mentioned, you started your college career in Indiana, right? What kind of led you to choosing going to Indiana? Did you always know you wanted to play Division I? Were you thinking about the professional ranks prior to going to college? What was kind of your thought process going into those 17, 18, 19-year-old years?
Yeah, well, I'm from Champaign, Illinois, so that's where the University of Illinois is. It's about 2 hours south of Chicago. So if you were to look at it, I'm the only player who's ever played professionally from Champaign or even around it, really. So it's not exactly a hotbed of soccer, but I was pretty lucky. I was fortunate to have good players around me when I was young, and I had a good coach and all these things. So then when I was 13 or 14, I actually started driving 2.5 hours to practice. I would play for the Chicago Magic.
Okay.
So yeah, and we were a good team, and we were, my sophomore year was the first year of academy. Like that was the first year academy started. Mm-hmm. So my sophomore, junior years, we got 5th and 3rd at nationals, and I was a key figure on the team. So, we were a good team. There's good history at Chicago Magic, and one of the programs that the club had good history with was with Indiana. And, when you're from the Midwest, like Indiana is the program.
Yeah.
And
it's almost like soccer. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember in the recruiting process at the beginning, there was a lot of schools that were coming at me, trying to get me to commit early. And I remember my brother kept telling me to be like, no, hold off. Some team will come. And then one weekend I played well and Indiana was there. And then the coaches loved me and brought me on a visit. And then there was an offer made. And it was basically like, when I was talking to my brother, he just goes, it's Indiana. You don't say no. Yeah. And like that was like legitimately the mindset. So I graduated a semester early to go to Indiana. So so I graduated in December of my senior year. So I went to Indiana as a 17-year-old semester early, which really helped with I got ahead in school, but then also playing time, it helps out. But, in terms of going professional, it's kind of crazy when you look at how the landscape in soccer is now in America, because you see all of these kids that are, they're 16, 17, 18 signing MLS deals. When I came out, so when I was 18, so like my freshman year, we had 2 players that turned professional. So, it wasn't a thing that you could necessarily even do, because I think at that time there were 2 players ever that had signed a homegrown contract in MLS. So those contracts weren't going out. The USL wasn't like it is now. Yep. The NASL wasn't established with money and all those things. So at those times, you went to college. That's what you did. Yeah. I think there was Jack McInerney, if you might recognize the name. He's in MLS for a long time. Yep. And then there was a player, Stefan Jerome, who went and played over in Croatia for a couple of years and then had retired. But besides that, everybody went to college. Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting that you just hit on that point of how the landscape has changed. And it's kind of happened really quickly as well. Over the span of the last 20 years, it's just soccer is completely different now in the States. It seems as if a new professional club is popping up every year now in this country. And again, you just hear there's an influx of academy players that are signing homegrown contracts, academy players that already have European interests. I think just a week or 2 ago, there was an interview with the Union coach, Jim Curtin, and he said that there was a 10-year-old in their academy that I think it was Bayern Munich and someone else already have their eyes on. And that's just that's not the way that the United States soccer system was years ago. And you brought up an interesting point a little earlier that you had to drive 2.5 hours when you were, to find a quality team, to find somewhere where you could really push yourself. And I think it speaks to, again, that idea of maybe that high level soccer was a little bit fewer and farther between when we were coming up through the ranks, but also maybe could you speak to kind of what was your mindset in deciding to do something like that? Was it you just knew I need to push myself outside of what I have around me right now, or was there an opportunity presented to you? Or so I mean, if I'm it's some 13 and all of those things. When it was since I was 7, 8, I was always a really good player, essentially, especially in my town. And I had been doing, this will be a throwback, ODP. Yeah. If you remember, yeah, they don't do it anymore. But And I had been doing ODP and been on the state teams and regional teams and those things when I was younger. And I was always killing it at the state level. So, and then, my team in Champaign was pretty good. So we would play against some of the better clubs. And I remember we'd play against Chicago Magic, who was, at that time, I don't think they don't exist anymore. Actually, they're now like FC United or something in the academy. But at the time, like when I first went there, they won state cup from U12 to U18. Like it was.
Yeah, they were the powerhouse.
They're killers. So I remember we played them, and I played really well against them and all those things. And they asked me to guest play with them in a tournament. So, and at that time there wasn't a plan to necessarily go play with them. So I play well, but then I see like the level difference, and I was like, oh, geez, like. So then they were like, yeah, we want you to come for the tryout. And again, it was kind of one of those things where, it's a 2.5 hour for practice. So my parents, they were going to have to do all the driving, all those things. So it's a huge commitment from not just me, but from my entire family. So we were like, let's just go up to the tryout and we'll talk to the coaches and kind of see some things. And then I went to the tryout, and, we were sitting there. I remember sitting there after the practice, and like the coaches talking to the players and the parents, and then talking. And then I remember my mom like leaning over to me, like, do you want to do this? And I was just like, yeah, yes. And then just bang, from that day, then it was just, my parents were all in on it and my family was all in. So then from when I was in 8th grade all the way through high school, it was, the club was really good with me, that they didn't expect me at every training. So I would go on Thursdays typically. So it would be, after school, my dad would come pick me up, drive me to practice. I would practice, get in the car, get back home at like 11 or midnight or something like that. And then games on the weekends. And then I would usually train 2 other times with my local club, like on an older team or something like that. So, but yeah, that was it for about 4 years. And it was all about just knowing that that's what was going to make me progress.
Yeah. Cause I'm sure it was tough too, when all of the guys that you grew up with playing, all your friends are still playing a bit more locally. And, you have to make that sacrifice to drive for the higher level training. And, you kind of see your friends, though, they're still all playing near your hometown and they're still all playing together. So I can't imagine that was an easy decision, especially at that young of an age.
Yeah. It's kind of strange where it's like, maybe it's not necessarily the easiest thing, where I was giving up some of my social time and, playing with some of the guys I grew up playing with, but it was still, it's even like where I was talking about, where going to college early, that's given up a crazy amount of social time and all those things, but neither of those decisions were necessarily that difficult for me. Like I wasn't like staying up being like, oh, I'm going to miss all these things. For some reason, it was just always like, no, this is what I need to do. Yeah. This is what's going to make me keep going. And I don't have an explanation to why it was so easy for me, but these, like going about playing in Chicago was an easy decision for me. Going to Indiana early was an easy decision for me. Coming over to Europe was an easy decision for me. I can't explain it, but it's always just been I could see it pretty clearly.
No, I mean, I think it makes sense. I think it speaks to your passion for the game, your ability, and your motivation to continue to want to get better and put yourself into situations where you feel like that's where you're going to do. Going to Indiana early, that was a situation where you knew that as a player, as a person, that was going to make you grow the most. It was almost like a no-brainer in that way. It definitely makes sense. And it speaks to that kind of professional athlete mentality. What can you do to make yourself a little bit better, to make yourself better than the competition, to make yourself better than the people around you. So makes sense. So now we're at Indiana a little bit early. How would you describe your college soccer career? I guess from a, personal standpoint, from a team standpoint, overall, what do you reflect back on your time at Indiana?
I mean, it was such a sick experience, like from not just playing, but just like the social life. And I had great teammates. Like some of my best friends now are all from playing. Like we're all very close still. So, I wasn't a starter my freshman year at the very beginning, but by maybe mid-season, I was pretty locked in as a starter from freshman year. So, that makes the playing experience a lot better when you're playing.
Yeah.
And we're doing well. Like my freshman year, we won the Big Ten. Sophomore year we didn't win any titles. We were close. And then, junior year, we won the national championship, which was
surreal. I can't
unbelievable, which was crazy, crazy, crazy. And then senior year was like one of the wildest, like terrible experiences that I've had, like as a player, and I didn't handle it well. Where it was, junior year, we had won the national championship.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you were to look at our starting lineup from when we won the national championship, going into senior year, we were returning 9 starters, and then we were adding an All-American transfer, and then we were adding Tommy Thompson, who plays for San Jose.
Yep.
Who's just a baller. Yeah. We added him and his brother, Tanner, who is a 3-time All-American. Like eventually he'll be a 3-time All-American. So our team was crazy, crazy, crazy loaded. And we were preseason number 1. And it was just like when you look back at it, it was kind of bad luck, but also like bad preparation and bad attitude from the team kind of thing. And we just kind of shit the bed. And we had a losing record for the very, very majority of the season. And we ended up having to, because at Indiana, I think I forget what the record's like 20, 30 some years where they made the NCAA tournament, or 40. It's something crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to win the Big Ten tournament to make it in. And I'll say this, for bad as a year it was, like I think 9 out of 10 teams would crumble and not get the job done. But we won the Big Ten tournament and we got into the NCAA tournament. So that was incredible from us, even after a really tough year where I think the issue was that the majority of us had never experienced losing. Like I said, all growing up, my team was good. My club was always winning all the time. My high school, I was winning all the time. Then I go to Indiana and we're winning all the time. And then, my senior year, now all of a sudden I'm faced with some adversity of losing that I'd never experienced before.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of my teammates were very similar because we were coming from very similar backgrounds. So we didn't handle it well, and it kind of snowballed. And then, you start panicking, and then the losses and things happen. And yeah, some of the losses were incredibly unlucky, but kind of how it was, and we weren't helping ourselves. But you got to give credit, and we got the job done. We still made the NCAA tournament and all of that, and that's kind of how the college ended. But it's one of those. I think it was a great learning experience for me, and it's helped me tremendously for what I've been dealing with professionally.
Yeah, I feel as if it's definitely, in some of my experience at college, obviously I didn't play at the same level as you, but also coaching some college as well. I think it sometimes can be a culture shock for players when they come in, because as you said, you've grown up and you've always been a part of winning teams, and you've always been the best player on your teams. And then, as you come into Indiana, that's who you're also surrounded with. Maybe it's predominantly the best players in the Midwest, but then you're playing against, okay, all the best players on the West Coast, all the best players on the East Coast. Everyone that's now on the field has been a winner for their whole life. And so that, then it comes, adversity starts to play in. How are you going to react when you do start to lose? If you've been accustomed to winning your whole life, what's going to happen when you go down a goal or when you are on a 2-game losing streak? So it's interesting that that senior year was, that a lot of people face that their freshman year when they first get to campus. You actually kind of did it in reverse in the senior year when things started to go sideways.
Yeah, it is really interesting, and I didn't see it coming. I mean, but at the same time, when I look back at some of my habits that were leading into it, we win the national championship and I'm a junior. Then that entire semester, me and all my best friends on the team are the oldest people on the team. And we're getting introduced at, the halftime of Colts games, and we're getting all this publicity, and, it was an incredible year. Like, it was so much fun. Like, that semester, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That spring semester, good Lord. But, you lose that, unfortunately, like, you lose some of that, like, the hunger, like that.
Yeah, the tenacity to, go do it again. Yeah.
which is so stupid when you look it should be like, it should have 100% be like, yeah, we're just going to keep grinding and we're going to repeat. But it's just, I was young and dumb. you know how it goes. I was 20.
Yeah, but you even look at in the professional ranks in soccer and in other sports as well. It's why it's such a hard thing to repeat, and why teams and clubs that are able to repeat as champions, it's always heralded as such this amazing feat, because it's just natural. As you win, you almost take your foot off the gas a little bit, while everyone else is reeling from that loss, whether it was they came in second or what have you. They're pushing that much harder to come and chase you. And if you take your foot off the gas for a little bit, that's where people start to catch you. Because like you said, at that level that you were playing at, the teams that you're playing, everyone is good. Everyone is super high quality. So if they have a little bit extra, that might be the difference.
Oh, 100%. And that's the thing that I figured out, and it goes both ways. You can catch and you can get caught in this game really quick. There's so many good players, and the thing is, there's so many different ways to be good at this game that, it's not all about athleticism. It's not all about technical skills, not all about whatever. So there's such a big pool of players that can catch you. So if you let off for just a little bit, there's, man, especially at the professional level, man, because you're dealing with worldwide, you can get caught quick. But the thing is, if you're working, if you're doing more, you can catch the guys quick too. So it goes both ways.
Absolutely. Do you feel like that experience your senior year, maybe looking back, are you a little bit grateful for it because it prepped you for going into the professional ranks and kind of starting your pro career?
Hell yeah. There was my senior year, which was really tough, but then the even tougher year was what follows it, because, so coming out, I'd been a 4-year starter. I was the captain at IU. I was all Big Ten twice, and then I get invited to the MLS Combine. So it's basically the whole time it's been lining up that I'll go to the MLS was always my thoughts.
Yep.
And, I had always thought if it didn't work, if for whatever reason, if MLS didn't work out, I could always NASL or maybe go over to Scandinavia or something like that. Was always the thought process. So I go to the Combine. I play out of position, but I play fine. And my agent is telling me yeah, you'll probably be a first round or a second round pick. And then, if it doesn't play out correctly, then you'll be third or fourth round pick. And then you'll go to an MLS team and you just have to make the team. Because at the end of the day, getting drafted is just an invite to a tryout.
Yeah. Can you maybe for somebody who isn't as familiar with the draft process, and obviously it looks much different now than it did when you were coming out, but could you maybe speak to that for somebody who doesn't, is used to watching the NBA draft or something? Can you speak to what the MLS draft really is? Because I think sometimes people do get a little bit of a misconstrued idea of what the MLS draft really is.
Yeah. So the MLS draft, you'll have typically it's 8, they call them, I think they still call them Generation Adidas contracts. Mm-hmm. which were for players that were not seniors. And then MLS would offer them a contract. So if you're junior, sophomore, freshman, or in high school, and then those players have contracts. And if you get drafted, you're on the team. And then they'll sign maybe 10, would be my guess, around there to senior deals. So then you already have a contract with MLS. A team drafts you, you're on the roster.
Okay.
But then for the rest, you don't have a contract. So if you get drafted, you're going on trial with the team basically. So for example, my teammate at Indiana, Chris Estridge, he was the first pick in the second round. So a really high pick. He was a left back. I think it was to Real Salt Lake. They also drafted a left back in the 4th round. They took the left back that got drafted in the 4th round, and then they cut my teammate.
Wow.
So yeah. So it's getting drafted isn't making the team. It's just getting drafted. Now it's a little bit different. It's a little bit safer because there's so many MLS 2 teams.
Yep.
Or they can send you to a USL team. Back then there was I don't think there were any MLS 2 teams. There might've been 1 or 2, but for the most part, there was no, so it was you needed to make the MLS team. That's how it was.
Mm-hmm. So what was your draft experience like? Obviously you told us about the Combine, but then how did it play out for you on draft time?
Yeah. So then I remember for the first and second rounds, I go back to go back to Indiana, and I'm like dressed all nice, and I'm with like some of my teammates. All these things, first and second round go by, name doesn't get called. So now I already feel like a jackass. Then it was like, okay, well, whatever. So then the draft was on Friday or Saturday, and then the third and fourth rounds would be on Tuesday or Monday.
Oh, so you got to wait like, oh, that's awful.
Yeah. So hang out in Bloomington, where Indiana is, for the weekend. And then I remember it was like third and fourth round. I was like, I'm just going to go home for it. So I went home, and, you know, you follow it on your computer. This one's on TV.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just sitting there, and it keeps going down. My name's not there. My name's not there. And I'm sitting in my basement by myself. And that, like, my parents weren't home. Brother wasn't living there. My sister wasn't home. And then all of a sudden, like, the draft came and went, and I didn't get picked. And I'm just sitting in my basement by myself, just like, what the hell just happened, basically.
Yeah.
So then I get on the phone with my agent, and he was like, yeah, like, this isn't ideal, obviously, but we'll try to get you in. We can still get you into an MLS team on trial. It would be, you know, they'll bring in players who don't get drafted and all that.
Yeah.
And then if not, we'll get you over to a USL team and all those, you know, and I'm still like freaking out. I immediately like just start, you know, then it starts like, I need to get going, be ready for my shot. So then the problem is the agent that I had was pretty high level. He had a lot of guys that were on some big money.
Mm-hmm.
So this may be true. This may not be true, but in my opinion, he kind of fucked me off a little bit because I wasn't going to make him very much money.
Yeah.
So then, you know, he wasn't returning phone calls. He wasn't replying to emails, and I couldn't even get a tryout in any USL team or any NASL team or anything. So I'm back in Bloomington because they were going to let me train, but I didn't have a place to stay. So I'm sleeping on all of my friends' couches. Mm-hmm. I'm sleeping on my car. I have no money. I'm like eating Chipotle for both lunch and dinner because it only costs like $6.50, you know, and I was in such a bad spot, man. I remember I'd be training with the team, but, you know, I'm pretty fired when I play anyways, but then you know, I'm really mad about the situation. I was picking fights with players and that I wasn't even on the team.
Yeah.
I wasn't even on the team, and I'm like fighting with guys. And, you know, then it kind of hits like May or June, and then all of a sudden it's like, I don't have a team. Like, season started, I'm screwed. So then it was all about like, what am I going to do now, man? Like, am I going to start coaching? Am I going to keep trying to play? What am I going to do? And then it was just like, I can't go out like this. Like, there's no way. I was like, all I need is a shot, man. Like, as soon as the team takes me, I'll always be like, the whole thing is going to be that every team that passed on me is going to regret it. So mm-hmm. I just started training so hard on some of the technical things that I really lacked, and I was just playing by myself. You know, I didn't have a team to play for or anything, and I was just kicking balls against a wall for hours and hours and just doing everything on my own. And then it was, you know, running and doing just crazy cardio. And then it was like St. Louis FC was going to be a new team in the USL,
mm-hmm.
and they told me it was like in August. They told me, they're like, yeah, we'll bring you in, or it was in July. Yeah. In July, they're like, yeah, we'll bring you in on trial in October. It's like, it'll be a big one. There'll be like 50 people. So I'm like, okay. So then I found a club in Indianapolis who would let me coach for them. I did coaching to make some money so that I could eat. And then it was just all eyes were on October.
Were you still living then it was, like near Indiana, or did you go back home to live at home for a bit? Okay.
No, I was still like I was crashing on couches, man.
Yeah.
I was crashing on couches and I was sleeping out of my car, and it was ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Yeah. I think every player can resonate with a bunch of things that you mentioned in there. One of which being, you know, I've done the same thing, like sleeping on futon before. Like you're really looking at that bank account, figuring out how am I going to make this work. But also that idea of like when you're training on your own, especially when you don't have a team, maybe it's, you know, in an off season, you're not sure what the next team is going to be, or, your free agent, whatever. That's at least for me, I've found it's been a difficult thing to stay hyper motivated, to be training, hyper disciplined in training when you don't know, when there's that uncertainty of, is there going to be a team? When is there going to be a team? How did you, obviously you knew, okay, I just need an opportunity and I'm not going to go out like this. But in that day to day, when you're waiting, you're waiting for that call from St. Louis, and you're like, I don't know if I'm going to get the call or when the call is going to come. What would you say to, another athlete who is going through that type of period?
I don't know. It's really difficult. And, I'll try to put myself back in, it's pretty difficult now. It's been 8 years to really put myself back in those shoes. But if I'm looking back at it, man, it was just like, I've always done pretty well when things go bad for me. Like I've always done pretty good at just like, that's like the spark, like the igniter that like gets me really going.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been like that since I was young. So then when this happened, it was just like, I was so laser focused on this, and like and it wasn't easy by any means. Like it was so sad. Like there were some tough nights there where, I'm sitting on my friend's couch at night crying because I can't understand what the hell is going on. Like I could not wrap my head around what was happening.
Yeah.
When I look back at it, I can kind of understand it, and I'm happy it happened because I don't think as a person or as a player I was ready to go into professional ranks at that point. But then going through this hell, like then that's what got me going. That's what made me ready for it. Because the thing is, at Indiana, like your facilities are better than like at the time most MLS places.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then when I eventually go to St. Louis, or like when I come over to Finland, like the facilities don't even come close to it. And the way you're treated doesn't even come close. Like it's not even in the ballpark. And I think if I would have gone from Indiana to these things, I would have almost been like what the hell is this? Like,
yeah,
that kind of shit.
Yeah.
But now then when I didn't have this year to play, I would have played on a gravel field. Like I would have done anything for any team. Like, so then when I finally got the opportunity, I was so grateful, and I didn't care about anything with the money, and it was just an opportunity to play again. So, but sorry, I didn't even answer your question.
That definitely does hit the nail on the head. And it's such a good point that you bring up about the facilities, like, especially coming from a place like Indiana, where you're a number one team in the country. And a lot of players don't get that, understand that idea of, okay, you just finished up college and now you're going to go and play for some, second division team in Sweden or third division in wherever. And you're like, wait a second, this is not the same. Because I was even victim to it too. And I played more in my overseas times. I played more in like the lower leagues, trying to work my way up. And, I even went to a small school, but you have facilities, you have locker rooms, you have a training room, you have a gym, you have all of this. And then you go and overseas, and it's like, yeah, you have a pitch and you have a sort of locker room, but that's about it. You're like, wait, I thought this was supposed to be pro.
Yeah, it's a big difference. But like the thing is, you got to understand is the money is going to the players.
Yeah,
players are getting paid when you're playing professional. So the money that you would have for a soccer program in Indiana, the players aren't getting paid. So now you can spend money on facilities, or you can spend these monies on nice practice kits and boots and these things. Mm-hmm. Where now you're playing over here, they only have so much money and they have to pay players. Like sometimes they cut costs somewhere, and it is very different than I think what I was expecting when I was in college or when I was young, thinking about playing professional. But I don't know. When I was young, I was never thinking about like, I want to be a pro so I can get this nice car and this nice house. Like it was, for me, it was, and I'm so lucky that it was this way, that it was never about that for me. So,
yeah. So to then have that phone call come from St. Louis for you to get that tryout after all the work that you'd put in, I'm sure must have been just probably relief more than anything to know that, okay, like I'm not out of it and I still have my opportunity. And then, like you said, just knowing for you that it wasn't about signing for the biggest club, signing a huge contract, getting the car, getting whatever. It was just about, I just want another opportunity to go and kick this ball around. Like, what was the emotions leading up into the trial? How did the trial go? What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, the trial, I had the 2 months, 3 months of a build up for it. So then I was just kind of, it's hard to stay in shape, like it's hard to be at that point. Then so the trial's in October. It had been almost a year since I'd played a game. So that's a long time. So then it was just, I was freaking out about being in good enough shape. So I was really working on making sure I was running, doing all these things. And then I went into the tryout, and I wasn't nervous. Like it wasn't I was freaking out. It was not like I was freaking out or anything like that, but I felt prepared. I felt ready. I went into the tryout. It's not like I played spectacular, but I did well. And, I showed what I could do. And then, they didn't tell me right away. Then it was hanging around back at Indiana for another week or two. And I remember I was like at my girlfriend at the time. I was like at her place. And then I got a call from my agent that was like, yeah, St. Louis is offering you a contract. And it was just like the biggest like relief, joy, like one of the, oh man, like
top
one
moments of
the
your
best,
life probably so far. Yeah.
Oh my God. And I was in this like bogus apartment, and it's not like it was like a good contract, like money wise, but
yeah.
it was unbelievable. Like it was, yeah. And that was the best. So then it was finally like I got a team. Like finally someone's going to take me. And then it was just all like waiting for preseason and wanted to get it going and all that. And then that's kind of like how the professional stuff started going.
Yeah. So then that's your first season as a pro. Give me some of the highs and some of the lows. I mean, obviously the first huge high is just signing that contract, then getting there and being a part of it. How did that season go for you? What was your adjustment like to the professional game and maybe the USL? Like, what was that standard like? What was that first season like for you?
So going into the USL, like at this point, I was just pumped to be on any team. So I was ready for any role. Like I didn't even care. I just wanted to contribute. I just wanted to get things rolling essentially. So then, we get through preseason, it gets to the game. And at the beginning I wasn't a starter, but I was always coming off the bench, and I was either playing right back or defensive mid. I'm a center midfielder naturally.
Yep.
But I could play essentially any position. I could be a utility guy. So as the season's like progressing, I'm mostly playing right back, and I'm coming in like starting sometimes, but not really. But I'm usually playing pretty well. And then there was like maybe halfway through the season, we played Montreal and Toronto FC, and I was playing right back, and then our center midfielder got hurt or something like that, and they moved me to center mid, and then I played well. And then then I played center mid the next game, played well, and then it was just my spot from the rest of the season because I was doing well. So the first season went great, and the thing is that I was with one of my best friends from college is Patrick Duty, and he signed homegrown for the Chicago Fire, and they loaned him to St. Louis. And then on top of that, one of the guys
they play with him too.
Yeah. And then on top of that, a guy that we grew up playing with, and it's actually Patrick's best friend. His name's Brian Shashulka. He was a really, really good college player, and he was an All-American college. He only played 1 year professionally, but he was a great player. But he was on the team as well, and there was a player that was 3 years older than us because we all played at the Chicago Magic. There was a guy that was 3 years older than us. His name was Brian Gall, and he played for Chicago Magic, and he was there as well. Like, so I knew some guys, and we had a great, like, it was a fun team and all of that. we didn't make the playoffs, and record-wise, it wasn't the best from that standpoint. But I mean, for my first year, like, yeah, obviously I want to win, and that's what I've always done. But really, it was about just like getting the ball rolling more than anything, and then like proving to myself that I could do this and could play. So that's how it was, and it's a big difference. I remember as a college player thinking about USL and NASL and thinking that it was almost like a joke, to be honest. Almost
Really?
like it wasn't going to be any good, and it was like MLS or nothing, like kind of thing. But then when I got there and started playing with these guys, like, oh, these guys can ball. Like it's a really good level, man. So it's not to be slept on by any means.
No, and because you got to think too, all the types of players that are in that league are probably players similar to your type of story, right? Maybe they were right on the cusp of MLS, and for whatever reason, like the chips just didn't fall their way, and now they find themselves in the USL. When you were playing in that USL level, you're around all those guys, was your motivation, was everyone's motivation kind of, all right, I want to come in, I want to do well at this level and prove myself so I can get back to that MLS where I felt like I should have been from the start?
I would say you had a pretty good amount of the guys that were like that, where it was a lot of guys that this was their first chance at it essentially, and they thought they should have been at a higher level, so it was time to prove it.
Mm-hmm.
Then you had more veteran guys, like we had guys that like Mike Ambersley was a NASL and USL legend. He ended up never playing in the MLS, but I think he played in the second division for 12 years, and he has all these goal scoring records, and he was a baller. So he was a veteran presence there. And then we had players like Brandon Barklage, who had played in the MLS for 6-7 years, and he was coming to the end of his career. So you had kind of a mix where you had some players trying to progress, and then some players who were like kind of coming down, and
Mm-hmm.
those kind of things. So you get a mix on it in the USL level.
Were you able to learn anything from those guys that were maybe played at that level and came down, or had years of experience at that level, especially for you, being a rookie into that league?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'll talk someone's head off, especially if I think they like older players, or if I think they might know some things that'll help me out. So I was always talking to Mike Ambersley, who was, like I said, had navigated the waters a lot. I would talk to Brandon Barklage a lot because he played center midfielder as well, and he was such a good dude. So you pick their brains, and a little bit about tactics, but a lot about like how you manage with teams, and how you deal with off seasons. And I wasn't necessarily like straight up like, how do you do this, blah, 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 but I would get them to tell me stories and then kind of take the information from there.
Yeah.
How do you treat your body before and after practice to make sure that I can play when I'm in my 30s and I'm not, having to retire when I'm 27, 28 years old. So, you learn a lot of those things from older players, which I think is one of the benefits of players going professional when they're 18, as opposed to going to university team. And I'll talk about this, is that if I were to look at when I'm 18 and I'm going to college, the players that I'm looking up to, that I'm like, oh, this is the standard, are 21-year-old college kids.
Yeah.
So, and then if you're an 18-year-old and you're going and you're playing professionally, like, for example, over here in Finland, like for my team,
Mm-hmm.
the standard that you're looking up to when you're 17, 18 years old are going to be like people, right around 30, or like we even have like a 37-year-old who's been through it, who's made it, who, they're pros.
Yeah.
Like it's a totally different thing that you can't put a value on it, like just being around those people and seeing it firsthand, as opposed to seeing a 20 or 21-year-old as your like leader and all of those things.
Yeah, it's interesting, that same idea. You can kind of see it with some of the young national team players that we are starting to have in our team. You can see this level of maturity that is amongst them. A lot of them are 18, 19, 20, but they handle themselves like a pro because that's who they've been around for years and years. They've signed those contracts when they were 16, 17, and they had guys in the locker room who were in their 30s telling them what to do, what not to do. And yeah, it completely changes when your role model is a 21-year-old who, yes, might be mature, but they also might still be partying on the weekends, like when they get a big win.
Yep.
And it's a different mindset for that of a seasoned professional.
Yeah, exactly. Spot on.
So did some of those conversations that you were having with those players lead you to starting to think about going overseas to Europe after that first season in the USL? Because you only had the one season with St. Louis, correct?
At 2.
Okay, two.
So I had my contract was like your classic 1+1, which you'll see everywhere.
Yep.
Anybody who's looking to be a professional, you're not going to sign that 5-year deal. Most likely, you're going to get a nice 1+1 at best. But yeah, so then they picked up my option, and I was coming back for my second year, and it was my mindset going into that off season. I was the grad assistant at St. Louis University as well in that off season. Yeah.
Why did you decide to do that at the same time? Just to give you something else to do, or?
Because I'll be a coach when I'm done playing, and I've kind of known this I've been coaching since I was 18. Mm-hmm. So I was in the area, and my brother's the assistant coach at DePaul right now, but he's been working in the Chicago area, so he would do a lot of recruiting. And he was talking to Mike McGinty, who was the head coach at St. Louis University at the time, and they just got to talking. And my brother was like, "Yeah, my brother, so me, would be great for the role, all these things." And then he talked to me. It was during my off season, and it just it all made sense. But while I was doing that, it was I was like, man, this is going to be the season that can make me take off, because now I've got I had my first season where I was like getting back into the swing of things, because after a year of not playing, you get rusty. But then now I had my season of playing. Now this is my second year. I'm going to ball out. So then this whole off season, I was killing it in the weight room, and like I was so fit. I changed my diet, all of these things. So then I came into that off season just like on fire, like ready to absolutely roll. But then things don't work out the way you want them always. and
pro,
and the coach had different things in mind as the season progressed, which I don't agree with, obviously, because it was me. But I think even if I were to like look back, because I can pretty comfortably look back at some situations and be like, okay, maybe I didn't deserve some playing time there, or like I was messing up there, blah blah blah. That I think I should have gotten more playing time than I was. I was playing in every game, but I was always coming off the bench. Mm-hmm. I played 7 different positions that year.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think I had to have led the all-time USL in this. I came into games. So if I came in for 20 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever, mm-hmm. there was 5 games where I played 3 positions in those
20 minutes.
Yeah,
that's insane.
I have to have the record for it. But the thing is though, like that I've always looked back and thought about this, and after the seasons, I let it get to my head so much, man. Like it was one of those things where, now that I've gotten older and I'm just starting to like really focus on like how you can only really focus on the things that you can control, basically.
Absolutely.
And if you start focusing on like your playing time, obviously you're going to get upset when you don't play and all of those things. And if you're not playing the position you want and all blah blah. But if you let it like bog you down, it's like it just amplifies the situation. You start playing like trash, and then it becomes a reason why you aren't playing. And that's what was going on with me. Like I was such a good player and I was fit and I was ready to roll. But the thing is, like, I would not get the playing time I deserved. And then I would just think about it all day. And, and then it would carry over into practice. And then like, it would be some drill where like somebody would get a penny and I wouldn't get a penny. And I'd be like, oh crap, that's the starters. And then it's not like I always give 1000% in practice. Like I'll always, like, there was never a moment where I was like, started walking around or not working, but then you're not focusing on playing. You're focusing on why am I not playing? Or like, why does that guy have a green penny and I have an orange penny? Like those little head games that you're playing with yourself, and then that contributes to, I think when I look back at it, why I wasn't getting the playing time I thought. And then there were that like I remember there was one game where I got subbed in at halftime, and it was, our team hadn't been playing well, and it was essentially like this was my shot to, if I played well, I was probably going to get some starts and all of these things. And that week in training, I wasn't very good, and I had been beating myself up. And then in the game, I didn't play up to my standard, and then that was my opportunity. And it blew it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how the second year goes. And as the season kept going, I knew I wanted to leave St. Louis. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, I've lived essentially in the same area of the United States my entire life, like being like right in the Midwest, and I didn't like how my game was. I didn't think I had progressed enough that year. I didn't like how I was, like as a person, like my personality and all these things. I knew I needed like a big change, So then I knew about, there's this program. It's called the Bridges program that gets run out of Chicago.
Okay.
And they get players, like they form a team, and then they bring them over to Norway, Finland, Sweden, and then the lower leagues in the United States. And they try to get these players signed. It's for players that don't have contracts. So I knew about this program because of it's in the Chicago area. So I was like, I'll talk to the agent that deals with them. So I contacted the agent, and I was like, hey, I want to go over and play in Sweden, Denmark, that area.
Yeah.
Finland. So then he was like, yeah, okay, like, got rid of my old agent, hired this agent. So then it was just, the season ended in St. Louis, and then it was just I had torn my meniscus right at the end of the season.
Oof.
But it was pretty, yeah, I did in college as well when we won the national championship. So that's a whole other story. But that was crazy. But yeah, so I was dealing with that, and I had to rehab it, and then it was just as soon as that got done, then I was gonna go on trials in Scandinavia.
Mm-hmm.
So my girlfriend at the time, her dad was the athletic trainer at my university. So for my rehab, I just went and stayed with them. He helped me with my knee. And then he was like, yeah, you can stay here as long as you need to train at the university so that you're ready for when you go on trial, with the thought process of being like, in January, I'm out of here. So I get healthy. Then January comes, nothing. Then February comes, nothing. And I am doing but I'm like ready. Like I was doing some sick workouts. Like I was ready to roll. Like at any time, if someone was like, hey, it's tryout time, I could have busted a 90-minute, no issues. So then like March hits, nothing. And then I'm staying in my girlfriend's parents' basement. So it's like this.
It's like flashbacks when you're waiting for the St. Louis trial.
Yeah, man, it was ridiculous, and it was kind of like, the first year coming out of college, most of the excuses that like teams have are like, oh well, he doesn't have any professional experience.
Yeah.
Things like that, which I kind of understand, but at the same time, like, how are you supposed to get professional experience if
yeah, it's like any job, like people, it's an entry level job, but they want 2 to 5 years of experience. Like it doesn't make sense, but the same I guess applies to the soccer world.
yeah, which I kind of understand, but at the same time, like some of the guys who were getting tryouts, it didn't make sense. But okay, but moving on, then it was, when I would be talking to my agent, he had a team in 4th tier and Sweden wants to bring you in, and they're like, okay, and then all of a sudden like it fell through. Or like a team in the 4th tier in Finland wants to bring you in, all fell through. Oh, this team in 3rd tier, blah, blah. Everything just kept falling through.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember it was a team in way northern Finland that was in the 4th tier in Finland. And it seemed like the way it sounded from my agent was like, for sure they'll bring me in. And then they didn't. And I remember just like, and then at that, like, what is going on? Like, now I have 2 years professional experience. I remember sitting there just like freaking out. It was such deja vu because I'm in this basement.
Yep.
I'm alone. I just got told again that these teams won't take me, and I'm just like having a meltdown. So then like then I hit the end of March, and I'm sitting there, and then my girlfriend comes up, breaks up with me. So now I don't have a place to stay. I don't have a team.
Gosh.
I have no money.
Perfect storm.
So then yeah. So then I drive home. So now I'm going back to Champaign. So I'm driving home, and then like talking to my mom and all these things, and she's like, "What are you gonna do?" And I was like, "I don't know." Like I had no clue. And then it was 2 days went by, and I was back home, and then my agent called me. He goes, "Okay, there's a team in the 4th tier in Sweden. They're gonna bring you in. Like they will bring you in on trial. They just told me." And I remember just being like, "Okay, what airport am I flying into?" And then it was like he tells me like, "Okay, it's up in the it's on the border of Norway and Sweden. It's up in these mountains. Nordvarmlands is the club." So then I was like, "Yeah, I don't even care."
I'm done.
Boom,
No.
booked a ticket, but packed my life with me. Like I brought everything with me. So I get into Sweden, get to the club, and the town had 200 people in it.
Wow.
Yeah, the town had 200 people in it, and it was like this. It was a ski resort basically, because like the owner of the team owned a bunch of ski resorts. It was a thing. So then I was like, okay, well, I'll go on trial for the week, play my game, play well in the game. They offer me a contract. So I'm like, oh, like, thank God this crap is over. I call my agent, and he was like, yeah, before you sign it, you got to realize that in the 4th tier in Sweden, it's not technically professional. So you'll be on a traveler's visa. When that goes up in 2 months, if it doesn't get renewed, you get deported. Like that's been happened to, I know some people who it's happened to in Sweden. He goes, and now that you're over here, like there's a team in the 3rd tier in Finland that'll bring you in. And I was like, on trial, or are they going to offer me a contract? He was like, on trial. And I was just like, well, am I going to make the team? And then he's like, if you play well, you're going to make the team. And I was like, let me check my bank account. and it was like getting from Sweden into Helsinki was going to be like less than 100 euros or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I had like just like at 100 euros, and I was like, screw it, let's roll. Boom, packed my stuff, went, and then that's how like everything in Finland got going, which was, yeah.
So what was that trial experience like? I know you talked about the Sweden one went well. Do you have any, because I always feel like players have 1 or 2 trial experiences that are like crazy or good stories. Do you have any like that, or were they pretty smooth sailing for you?
All my trials have been pretty like nothing bad's ever happened. Like there's been like my first one in Sweden, like I didn't sleep the night before the game because of all the jet lag. So that was a nightmare. We went so we warmed up in one place, and then we got dressed, and then we had a 10-minute ride to the game, and I slept from the warm up to the, and then so maybe that was the secret to playing well in that game.
Yeah.
But
everyone's like, Coach, you sure this is the guy you wanted to bring in, the one who's sleeping as you're about to come play?
Yeah. But yeah, so then in Finland, it was, I first come in, and it's another small town, but there's more than 200 people, but it's a really small town still. And then I trained for 3-4 days, something like that, playing fine. And then had a game on Saturday, like that Saturday, played really well in the game. And then right after it, they came up to me and they're like, yeah, we're going to offer you a contract. And I was just like, let's roll.
Let's go.
Let's go. And so, yeah, then it wasn't ideal by any means, because it was like, I was staying in a language school. They didn't even give me, because like usually when you'll sign a contract, it'll be like, you'll get, especially in the lower leagues, you'll get this amount of money, an apartment, and some food or something like that, because they have to. You have to, as a foreign player in Finland, you have to make a certain amount of money. But then like the money can come from food and other, like for example, like because I was staying in a language school, they added my language courses as like a
part of the salary package. Okay.
Yeah. So when I signed it, it was like 500 euros in a part, like staying in the language school and like food. And I was just like, oh my God, like I have a $250 car payment back home and I have to pay taxes. Like how am I, but then I was just like, screw it. Like, it doesn't matter. Like I'll fit, like, this is what I need to do. Like, you know, I came over, I really wanted to come over to Europe because you can just get so trapped in the USL. It's so hard to get to the MLS because there's no promotion relegation.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I was thinking like, if I come over to Finland or Sweden, like, then it's just going to be about like, can I ball out? Can my team get promoted? And I want to play in the top league. Like, that's what I wanted to do. Like, so then I was like, whatever, this is going to be my year where I'm just going to play well. And I didn't know anything about third tier or second tier, like level wise or first or whatever. So I was like, let's roll and let's see how the season goes, kind of thing.
Yeah. So when you went over to Finland, because went over to Europe for your first time, I'm curious about a lot of players' different mindset about this. Is I think some treat it as like, okay, I'm going, you know, for this contract, and almost like when you go away to college, right? Like you're going to college, but you still live back in the States. Like when you were going to Europe, were you kind of in the mindset of like, all right, I'm moving to Europe, like my life is now in Europe? Or were you still a little bit in the beginning of like, okay, I'm going to play here, but I'm still live in the States? Like, because now that you've been in Finland for a couple of years, it seems like you were ready to make that transition of, I'm here, I'm ready to build my career here, and I'm ready to, you know, live in Finland.
I had thought about I didn't think about it at the time, but when I've like reflected on all of these things, like a couple of years ago, because now I've been over here 5 years. Well, this is my 5th year. A couple of years ago, I was like, I was like reflecting on that whole situation. And a lot of guys, when I would talk to them, they would talk about like, I just packed my bag with the essentials. Like some guys will only bring like, you know, the toothpaste, underwear, a couple of change clothes, those things. I packed my life.
Yeah.
Like I had 2 bags that were overweight at the airport. I had 2 bags that were overweight at the airport. I had 1 bag that was so stuffed, like it would barely even zip. That was my backpack. I had another like duffel bag, and like I packed my life with me and brought it. So that was like, when I look back and I was like, oh, like, damn, like
you're ready. Yeah.
I was ready to roll. Like there was no going back. For whatever reason, I was thinking like, this is it. Like I don't know. Like I was sure it was going to work.
Yeah. In those first couple of years, I'm sure now it's become much easier now that you're super accustomed to the culture and the country and the football and everything. In those first couple of years, were there difficulties that you faced that were way different than when you were playing over in the USL? Like, you know, now you're adding also farther away from family and things like that. What was that first season like for you signing in that 3rd division?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're going to miss your family, like, but I didn't have too many difficulties because everyone spoke English for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, like, you have 20 built-in friends, you know, on your team. And I'm a pretty social guy, so like I'll talk people up and get them to hang out with me and all of those things. You know, in Finland they're a little more reserved, a lot more reserved than Americans.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there's a little bit of difficulty on that end, but like I was lucky where the club was great. You know, I was a good player there, so obviously they're going to help you out a little bit more. And then like I was saying, I was staying at a language school. Like I wasn't at an apartment, so I would go to my Finnish classes and not learn a damn thing because the language is impossible. And then, oh my God, this language.
So hard. 5 years later, where are you at with it?
Can't hold a conversation. Kidding me? But yes, but it was crazy because then I was living with, I would eat breakfast every morning with a guy from Afghanistan. like sitting across from me. And then I would, be hanging out with people from like all over Africa, all over Europe, like people from Asia, all these things. So I was meeting all these people where I'm from in America, like if someone was like, yeah, I'm Italian, that means their great grandparents were born in Italy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly,
like they're not really
yeah.
Italians. So now I'm actually experiencing like, and I was so interested. So I was making friends, and I was fine. I didn't get too lonely or anything like that. And then obviously when I'm having success on the field and I'm feeling like I'm progressing, it makes it all that much easier as well. So, yeah, there wasn't too much of a culture shock for me. It was just kind of like, this is what I'm doing now, like, and I'm going to adapt.
Yeah. And so you adapted well and played well that first season. And then, so you've played now for 3 clubs in Finland, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Was it after that first season when you made the jump to a new club based off your performances?
Yeah. So the first year went well. We almost promoted. Like if we would have won our last game, we would have gone to the like promotion. Because there's 4 groups in. Yeah, so if we would have won our group and then gone into it, but we ended up losing to the worst team in the league.
Oh, still haunts you to this day.
Yeah. So our team had like the rival club was 10 minutes from us. And in Finland, the 3rd tier and the 2nd tier, there's one more month that the 2nd tier plays. So when our season ended, I was like, I'm not going to go home. I called my agent. I was like, can you ask them, the club's called EIF, EIF. Like, can you call them and see if I can go train with them? He's like, yeah. So call them. They're like, yeah, you can go train with them. So went there, trained with them for the last like 2 or 3 weeks, did well. Then the off season's coming, and they invite me to come back on trial with them in January. And then there was also Haka, who I'm at right now.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to bring me in, and so I'm looking at the 2 teams, and I was like, well, Haka's traditionally like won all of these championships. They finished higher than EIF because EIF had like really small amount of money, and the highest they'd ever finished was the spot above relegation.
Okay.
So I was like, I want to go to Haka. So tell my agent that, because they had offered me to come on trial there. So then like a few days go by and my agent still hadn't heard anything from him. I was like, what is going on? And he keeps like I don't know what they were doing. And then I was like, I'm not doing this again.
Yeah.
I'm going to put
PTSD from the first 2 times. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I'm going to EIF. Like screw this. Like I'm not putting up with this. So then like and it was the biggest, oh my God, biggest blessing in disguise, man. Because I go to EIF and they had got a new coach that was a Spanish guy, and he was just fantastic. And like growing up playing in America, like especially the way I was coached growing up, man, it's like obviously the coaches were doing the best of what they were doing, and they were the best at what was going around. But I didn't even learn about like playing between lines, or like how to actually build from the back and different movements and all these things. And this guy was from Barcelona. He had a UEFA Pro license, and I go on trial there, and I make the team. They offer me a contract, and then and he taught me so much that year. That was crazy. Like it opened my eyes to so many. It made me such a better player. And the thing is, so like I said, like the club was a small club, only a spot above relegation, and then like our team was filled with, it was like 7 players were playing in the 3rd tier the year before, and then it was like a couple players that were like from the town, and then there was like a couple guys sprinkled in that were from other places, and we just tore it up. We were killing it. We were with 6 games left, we were in 1st place. Like, so we were like, holy crap, we might be promoted.
We might get promoted.
Yeah. and I was playing great. You know, there's so many of us had like so many. If you look at some of the players that were on the team now, like most of them are playing in the top league now or had gotten big contracts like the year after this and all of this. So, you know, we end up finishing third. Like we kind of, I wouldn't say choked on the end of the season, but we kind of choked a little bit. We lost some big games. So then that was, you know, I had played really well, and I was like, a top league team's for sure gonna take me, like no doubt. Like I just killed it. So I had only signed a 1-year deal at AIF. So then went back home, and then it was just kind of, I was in a much better mental space going into this offseason because I was like, you know, the worst case scenario for me is going back to AIF, which the year before was my best case scenario.
So how far you've come in that 1 year is huge.
Yeah. So like when I put it into perspective like that, I was like, okay, that's a great year if your worst case scenario is now what used to be your best case scenario. Like that's fantastic. So I'm sitting there and I'm waiting for a team in the top league to bring me in on trial or whatever, and it just keeps being like, nobody's biting at it basically. And but then my agent calls me. He was like, yeah, Haka is offering you a contract, like not even bringing you on trial. They're offering you a contract. It was a nice contract, and they're in the second tier. And I was like, okay. And he was like, you know, but they called me and they said they're looking to promote, and like you're the kind of player that they want. Like the coach really wants you, basically. Okay. So then I was like, okay, let me call him and talk to him. So then I called him, the coach, and I was like, okay, what's the team goal? Like, what are the team goals? And he goes, well, we have an anniversary coming up the next year, so like if we don't promote, it's a failed season. I was like, okay, then I'll sign. And then that's how the conversation went. And then I signed because like the goals, they're aligned with what I wanted to do.
Yeah, get to the top league.
Yeah. So then it was, then I went in January. So then that was, you know, now this is my second year in the second division, or, you know, yeah, in the second tier. And then it was, you know, after 3 months, I got named captain here. You know, when I moved in, you know, and I was captain at AIF as well after about like in like May or June or something like that. So I was used to the leadership position, but it was still like it was a pretty big shock after. It was so quick, and it was like,
So you weren't really expecting.
You're the guy. No.
Interesting.
Like I was, yeah, like it was because, you know, there was a lot of established guys on the team, and, you know, I came in, like, obviously I was going to be a pretty like, in training, I was a louder and more like I'm a like pretty good leader, like all of those things, and pretty commanding. And in one of the preseason games, I was like, when we went in for the lineup, I was the captain. I was like, oh crap. But it was before I got named. And then it was like right before the season, the coach texted me and he was basically like, hey, I just wanted to ask if you would be the captain. I understand if you turn it down because you're new to the team and you're a foreigner, but like I think this is a special circumstance, blah blah blah. And then I was like, hell yeah, let's do this. I think I'd be great at the job. Yeah, and then that ended up being like, that season was ridiculous. Like we stomped the league. We didn't lose a game until we won the league.
Wow.
Yeah, we won 15 straight games, and that's when we got promoted.
What was that run of form like? To just like, did you feel like you could put a foot wrong in those 15 games almost?
No. like you would we'd be, because even like when we would play bad, you know, that's always like the standard, like what people talk about, like the trade, like like even when they play bad, they win. Like we would be down 1-0, and the thing is, there was like, you have that confidence about you, because there's like, you know, they have this I read this quote from Tim Grover, who, if you know him, like the guy who wrote Relentless, all that, he always says that confidence is the ultimate drug, winning's the only dealer. And it's so damn true. It's so damn true, because like when we had won a few games, then all of, you know, chest is puffed out. Like we would go down a goal and it was just,
it's fine.
Don't worry, we'll go 3. Yeah, we'll score 3. So then it was we had 15 straight wins, and then like getting promoted where it was like, man, like when we won that final game, and it was sealed up that I was going to the top league, and it was just like all like the, you know, leaving my family and the crap apartments, and the, you know, looking back even at the US, like sleeping on friends' couches and all of that stuff. Then it was kind of like, it was just like it was incredible. It was an unbelievable feeling. That was like, finally now I'm going to be playing in the top league over in Europe, and I'll be the captain there. Like, it was
and
crazy.
To do it by winning promotion with the team, you know, that you were a captain of, that's not like, there's a bit of extra specialness to that I think you could probably cherish versus, you know, just performing well and then you go on trial with a team in the top flight.
100%. Where it's like, you know, it's another one of those things where I'll look back where it's like another blessing in disguise, where it's like, you know, it would have been cool, obviously, if a team in the top league signed me after playing well at AIF. But like doing it myself, or, you know what I'm saying? Not myself, my team was there. But being on the team that won it and promoted, and like, I did this crap. Like, it wasn't that someone offered me a contract and that's how I did it. It was that I was at this level and then I killed myself and got to here. Like, that's dope.
Yeah, everything that you put into it paid off in that moment. Do you feel it's such a hard thing to compare, I imagine, but what would you say from that first contract with St. Louis moment, or that promotion moment? Like, is there a comparison between the two emotion wise? Like, you're going like so far one of the highest points of your career.
I would say it was two kind of different things. Where like the first contract, I would say there was more relief that was in it. Like, it was definitely really happy, but I think it was more relief because it was like, you know, finally kind of thing. Like you know, I had always thought I was going to be a pro. Like, all my friends thought I was going to be a pro, and then where it didn't happen, then all of a sudden, like, this thing that used to be what everybody kind of knew me for, and to an sense, I'm a friendly guy, but it's also at the time when you're really good at a sport, like, people will like you for it. Like, when I went to high school, people already knew who I was because I was good at soccer, you know. And then all of a sudden, then it became this thing where it got to the point where, like, my friends are making fun of me, you know, about not being on a team or those kinds of things. So then, like, you know, soccer had become this thing that was always like, you know, so attached to my identity and all these things. And then all of a sudden it became a thing where I felt like a joke, man. So then, like, finally when I got the contract, then it was such a relief that, you know, I shouldn't have been feeling those ways necessarily, because I don't think it's true. I don't think that's why my friends like me, but that's how I was feeling, you know? So that was more of a relief. Where getting promoted, that was like so much work that I had put in for years and years and years, you know, let alone from when I was like 5, 6 years old, but like just from when college ended, like, and it made all of those things worth it, basically. And that was awesome. That was such an amazing feeling. And it was, I remember, like, we won the game, and then, like, the team went into the locker room and celebrating for a little bit, and I had to just, like, stay outside for a little bit and just sit there and
take it all in.
For a little bit, and just, because it was amazing.
Man, I can't even imagine, I'm sure. So now we're basically caught up to today, and how is the season going currently, and, you know, how are you doing personally with the club, and give us the status.
Well, yeah, we had so last year was actually the first year in the top league, and that was, you know, we went from stomping everybody, but now we're actually playing in the top league. So we ended up being in a relegation battle, but we stuck it out basically, and stayed promoted, or not stayed promoted, stayed in the top league. Stayed up. You know, and then this year coming in, there was more expectations. We signed in some good players and all of those things. You know, and we're much better than last year, but we're still we're still in the bottom half of the table currently right now. You know, it's players are good, man. Like the margins are small on what you can mess up on, and you know, you got to take advantage of other people's mistakes and all those things. So, but we still have about 11 games left. So right now we are 7 points clear of relegation, like for sure, like because the bottom team gets relegated.
Okay.
Second to bottom goes into a promotion playoff with the team who finishes second in the second tier. So we are 4 points clear of that, and then we are 5 points back on getting into the top half. So there's still plenty to play for in the season, obviously, if you have this many games left. But you know, we lost our last game, which was a bummer at home, but we had won the previous two. So you know, we're starting to play a bit better, and
yeah, I get some results.
Things will keep rolling. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I guess we can end on this one. I don't want to take too much of your time. I'm sure you got to get off to sleep soon to train in the morning. But and maybe right now it's not something that you're thinking about as much because you're super hyper focused on this one season with the club and doing the best you can. But have you thought about kind of your career as a whole? Like, do you feel like I want to continue to build off what I've done in Finland, or is there still maybe that sense of wanting to come and play in the States again at some point? Or, you know, where do you feel like you're at in terms of personally with your career?
Yeah, so I mean, we'll see how things shake out here at the end of this year and everything. But you know, I want to do 1 more year in Finland. This is ideal world, but you know, with this job, you ain't get your ideal world very much.
Yeah. So sometimes get what's given to you, but
yeah. So we'll see. But ideal world, I'll be back in Finland next year because now I'll qualify. I've done enough games that I can do my B license for UEFA B for coaching. Okay. Yeah, they have like I forget what the program. It's basically for players who've played in the top league for a certain amount of games and seasons, and then it's an accelerated course that gets you a very good coaching license. So I'd like to be back in Finland next year so I can play and do that, and then I'd really like to finish up playing in America. You know, more than likely be in the USL, because the MLS, that level is, you got to be killing it to make it in the MLS. So yeah, that's hopefully in the next couple of years I'll be able to come back and in front of my parents, play in front of my family, and how the season can end up, your career end up.
Yeah. Has your family ever got to come out to Finland and see you play?
My mom has come in twice. Yeah. So she's been both years that I was playing in the second tier for both clubs. Okay. But then last year because of COVID, and then this year is still tricky. So we'll see.
Yeah, gotcha. I'm sure that was a cool experience to have them come out and see you play there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm trying to next year. The family's talking about getting the full squad. Like I have my brother and sister, and I have a bunch of nephews now, and mom and dad, all of them coming next year because it's only been my mom so far. So
okay.
Hopefully I'll be back in Finland. That'd be a great way to cap it off. But you know, we'll have to see how everything goes. You know, everything changes year by year. So who knows how I'll be feeling next year? Maybe I'll want to stay again. But yeah, that's the plan right now.
Awesome. Well, I wish you all the best with the rest of the season and with everything going forward. And appreciate you coming on today, man, and taking some time out for it. It was a great conversation, and I really enjoyed it. I hope the listeners did as well.
No problem, man. Hey, thanks for having me on it. Anytime you want to have me on again, no issues from my part.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely have to do it again soon. We'll do a part 2, maybe talk about the rest of the season and any other stories you got for us. But thank you so much, my friend.
No problem. Appreciate it.
Talk to you soon.
See you, man. Yep.
Bye.